important is it for parents to actively encourage speech development and language development in their children? Or in their babies, sorry, I should say, in their babies.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is vital. I cannot really stress enough the importance of talking to your baby, to your newborn baby. There are actually many research studies that have currently being carried out that show that speaking to your newborn will not only develop their language, but it will actually increase their cognitive performance. So in very simple terms, this means that parents who talk constantly with their children will actually raise smarter children. Right. So I mean, this is really I cannot really stress the importance of this. Again, speaking from personal experience, I can say that sometimes this is very hard, especially with newborns. You have this tiny little person who you adore, and what kind of conversation could you have with such a newborn in the end, right? You can tell your baby how much you love him, how adorable she is, but what kind of conversation can you really carry out? So that's why I understand that this can be sometimes very, very difficult. But it's really one of the most important times when they're at the newborn stage to talk to them. I mean, you can be very exhausted. Sometimes you can even feel like you're kind of like crazy, just talking and talking to the baby without getting any kind of response. But really my advice would just be to persevere, continue having tons of conversations. And definitely this is something that I really also want to stress, is to avoid just putting the baby maybe in front of a TV. Sometimes I have seen that maybe parents to kind of fill in the silence, that sometimes it's like you have very long days with your child. Maybe you are on your own as a mother. Maybe your husband has already gone back to work, so you are the one who's there on your own. The simplest thing, maybe just to fill in the silence, put the child in front of the TV. This really does nothing for their development. So I mean, possibly maybe later when they're about 18 months old, if you want to maybe try once a week, a little bit of TV, but definitely before that, it doesn't do anything for their development.
Right. So talking to them, and is there anything else that you can do? I know that with my first, I actually taught her sign language first, rather than, I still spoke to her a lot, but from 6 months old, I started teaching her signs. So by the time she was 18 months old, she actually knew the signs for 30 different things, and she could communicate using these signs, but she couldn't necessarily say the words yet. My in-laws were actually quite worried that she would not be able to speak so much because she was signing so much. But is that a problem? For her, it actually turned out absolutely fine. She speaks so much. It definitely did not inhibit her ability to learn speech, but I think it helped her communication. Right. But is there anything else that we can do, for example, like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so as you said, teaching babies some sign language definitely should not affect their language development. If anything, I also believe that it can help them, it boosts their language. But definitely, I do have a few suggestions. When the babies are our newborns, I think it's very important that parents try to narrate everything that they're doing. Like even like, for example, when they're changing the diapers, like just narrate what you're doing. Try to simplify the steps. The sequences are really, really helpful. Sequences also help a lot with language stimulation. So like step 1, what are you doing? Step 2, like following, like what happens when you use a wipe, like just really, like it doesn't matter. Don't feel like you're crazy. Narrate everything that you're doing. Once you have finished, are you going now to the kitchen? What are you going to have for breakfast? Really just continue, maybe brainstorm a lot of ideas, and then you will see that from one topic you will lead to the other, so that you're constantly talking to your baby all day. Another great suggestion, another great tool is reading or using books. Maybe even forget about reading the book. Just use the book, use the illustrations to kind of guide yourself. You can tell the story in your own words. You could also use common or popular stories, maybe like Little Red Riding Hood. Tell them the story using your own words, and you will see how you actually use a lot more vocabulary than you're used to, a lot more vocabulary than you use in your everyday language, which is also great for stimulating or increasing their vocabulary. Songs, another great tool, like singing simple repetitive songs,
nursery rhymes, to them, things like that.
Nursery rhymes, sing to them as much as possible. Use these nursery rhymes. Really, at the beginning, you may think again that you're a little bit crazy, like singing. Maybe that like he's not even making eye contact, but really, believe me, this will pay off. There will be a time when your child is, like humming the tune or going along with the tune, and then gradually even putting the words to like singing the lyrics to the song. So definitely they are absorbing, they are learning, and literally their brains are growing. Like every time you learn, you make new neural connections, which actually it expands the density of your brain.
Excellent.
So literally their brains are growing when they're learning all of this. And then of course, once your child grows, once maybe she becomes a toddler, teaching them language is actually a bit more easier, maybe even more fun. You can use any experience, when you're going out to maybe to the store, to the market, make it an adventure, like, oh, where are we going? What are we going to observe? Like, look at the cars, look at the buses. Oh, so many people riding their bikes, like, again, kind of like narrate everything just like you did when they were newborns. Maybe now even ask them questions. We're going to the market, so what are we going to buy? Like, try and have them make lists, things that maybe they can get at the market. What else? Also, maybe when you're playing with them, at one point, maybe around 18 months, you will see that your child begins to develop just like free play, so for example, my child loves to pretend play, that he's making a soup. Like, he loves that. So I like use these opportunities. I use this opportunity all the time. So like, what are the ingredients? I ask him a lot of questions. What are the ingredients in the soup? So he, for example, if he uses like a tomato, like he has all of these little play fruits and vegetables. So like, oh, you're using a tomato. So what color is the tomato? What does it taste like? So like, use these opportunities, like natural opportunities to introduce new vocabulary. Like, so for example, I tell him like, oh, we're gonna stir the soup, or maybe is it too hot? Do we need to let it cool down a bit? Like, so just like use all of these opportunities to introduce new vocabulary, as well as to continue reinforcing all the vocabulary. Yeah.
Excellent. And what's some of the generalized milestones that parents should be looking out for in development of their baby's speech or language development?
When they are newborns, I think one of the first things you begin to notice, maybe around 4 months of age, is that they begin to, with their eyes, they begin to try and locate where certain sounds are coming from. Like if you're talking to them, maybe a bit from a distance, like they begin to move their eyes. Later on, you could also notice maybe around 6 months that they begin to respond to, when you say their names.
Right.
So if they hear their names, they're going to turn around. And then so like gradually, little by little, maybe by 7 months, they are babbling a lot. The cooing sounds. Again, this is something you should notice when they're very, very young, around 7 months. A lot of babbling, a lot of just like what we call nonsense syllables. And then of course, by the time they're 1, you are going to want to hear them say a few words. And then from this stage onwards, it's just about increasing a lot of words. Around 1.5, they should have like maybe around 5 to 10 words with like everyday objects like juice, milk, mama, of course, dada. And then little by little, this becomes like the usage of words becomes now maybe they're forming very, very simple phrases, right? And language, of course, this is a very, very general outline of language milestones. Language, of course, does not stop developing until a child is around 5 years of age.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Excellent. And what's some of the advice that you would give to new mothers in general?
Yeah, well, I want to start off by saying that definitely I love being a mom. I love just being with my little one.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I also don't want to sugarcoat motherhood. I think motherhood it's a very, very tough job, and I sometimes feel that no one really tells you, really out or bluntly says like, yes, it's hard. I think like in a way all mothers are worried about being judged. But I wanna tell them that I want to tell new moms or moms to be, you definitely should not feel like that. You shouldn't feel like you're alone. Everybody has had these feelings of like inability, when you become a mom, you question yourself all the time. Am I doing things right? Like, is this gonna harm my baby? And it's of course like these feelings of incapacity that are like it's not. Yeah, of course, self-doubt that you don't love having. But yeah, like as I said, you're not alone with these feelings. We have all been there. But just like with anything, maybe I'm gonna compare, like it's definitely not the same, but it's like having a new job, like starting out on a new job. Like you also have a lot of self-doubt. You don't know if what you're doing is the right thing. But again, gradually with practice, with time, like you begin to get better at it. And it's the same with being a mom. It's like there is kind of this moment where everything begins to flow, so it will get better. And then once you kind of like feel like you've got this, I think that it's the best moment. It's like when you definitely feel like I'm good at this, and then you can even like enjoy it, have fun, and just continue being in love with your baby. So definitely I would say forget about trying to be in control. Like I used to be a person who wanted to like have a lot of things in control. This is like definitely probably the, like my biggest takeaway is that flexibility is actually probably the key to my sanity now. Like you're gonna have to learn to be flexible all the time. So many variables that you cannot control. So then, like again, once you kind of learn that it's okay, you will get better at this. And I guess from my own experience, I can say that I will now forever be tired, but it's not the same as being sleep deprived. I can say that, like it's so, like even though I'm tired, I really believe that this job is completely and like totally worth it. Like I absolutely love being a parent, and I have so much fun every day.
I agree. It's the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting to me today, Andrea. It's been so enlightening, and I've really loved chatting with you, and I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope everybody else has.
Thanks. You're welcome. Yeah.